Weatherbury. I got poor little Fanny Robin in my waggon outside, and I must be at the churchyard gates at 4:45 with her." "Ah, I've heard of it. And so she's nailed up in parish boards after all, and nobody to pay the bell shilling and the grave half crown?" "The parish pays the grave half crown, but not the bell shilling, because the bell's a luxury. But I can't hardly do without the grave, poor body. However, I expect our mistress will pay all." "A pretty maid as ever I see. But what's your hurry, Joseph? The poor woman's dead, and you can't bring her back to life, and you may as well sit down comfortable and finish another with us. I don't mind taking just the least thimbleful you can dream of more with ye, sonnies, but only a few minutes, 'cause 'tis as it is." "Of course you'll have another drop. A man's twice the man afterwards. You feel so warm and glorious, and you whop and slap at your work without any trouble, and everything goes on like sticks a breaking. Too much liquor is bad, and leads us to that horned man in the smoky house. But after all, many people haven't the gift of enjoying a wet, and since we be highly favoured with a power that way, we should make the most of it." "True," said Mark Clark. "'Tis a talent the Lord has mercifully bestowed upon us, and we ought not to neglect it. But what with the parsons and the clerks and school people and serious tea parties, the merry old ways of good life have gone to the dogs. Upon my carcass they have." "Well, really, I must be onward again now," said Joseph. "Now, now, Joseph, nonsense. The poor woman is dead, isn't she? And what's your hurry?" "Well, I hope Providence won't be in a way with me for my doings," said Joseph, sitting down again. "I've been troubled with weak moments lately, 'tis true. I've been drinky once this month already, and I did not go to church a Sunday, and I dropped a curse or two yesterday. So I don't want to go too far for my safety. Your next world is your next world, and not to be squandered off hand." "I believe you to be a chapel member, Joseph, that I do." "Oh, no, no, I don't go so far as that." "For my part," said Coggan, "I'm staunch Church of England." "Ay, and faith, so be I," said Mark Clark. "I won't say much for myself. I don't wish to," Coggan continued, with that tendency to talk on principles which is characteristic of the barleycorn. "But I've never changed a single doctrine. I've stuck like a plaster to the old faith I was born in. Yes, there's this to be said for the church: a man can belong to the church and bide in his cheerful old inn, and never trouble or worry his mind about doctrines at all. But to be a meetinger, you must go to chapel in all winds and weathers, and make yourself as frantic as a skit. Not but that chapel members be clever chaps enough in their way. They can lift up beautiful prayers out of their own heads, all about their families and shipwrecks in the newspaper." They can," said Mark Clark with corroborative feeling. "But we churchmen, you see, must have it all printed aforehand, or dang it all, we should no more know what to say to a great gaffer like the Lord than babes unborn." "Chapel folk be more hand and glove with them above than we," said Joseph thoughtfully. "Yes," said Coggan. "We know very well that if anybody do go to heaven they will. They've worked hard for it, and they deserve to have it, such as 'tis. I bain't such a fool as to pretend that we who stick to the church have the same chance as they, because we know we have not. But I hate a feller who'll change his old ancient doctrines for the sake of getting to heaven. I'd as soon turn king's evidence for the few pounds you get. Why, neighbours, when every one of my taties were frosted, our Parson Thirdly were the man who gave me a sack for seed, though he hardly had one for his own use, and no money to buy 'em. If it hadn't been for him, I shouldn't have had a taty to put in my garden. Do you think I'd turn after that? No, I'll stick to my side, and if we be in the wrong, so be it. I'll fall with the fallen." "Well said, very well said," observed Joseph. "However, folks, I must be moving on now. Upon my life I must. Parson Thirdly be waiting at the church gates, and there's the woman abiding outside in the waggon." "Joseph Poorgrass, don't be so miserable. Parson Thirdly won't mind. He's a generous man. He's found me in tracts for years, and I've consumed a good many in the course of a long and shady life, but he's never been the man to cry out at the expense. Sit down." The longer Joseph Poorgrass remained, the less his spirit was troubled by the duties which devolved upon him this afternoon. The minutes glided by uncounted, until the evening shades began perceptibly to deepen, and the eyes of the three were but sparkling points on the surface of darkness. Coggan's repeater struck 6 from his pocket in the usual still small tones. At that moment hasty steps were heard in the entry, and the door opened to admit the figure of Gabriel Oak, followed by the maid of the inn bearing a candle. He stared sternly at the one lengthy and 2 round faces of the sitters, which confronted him with the expressions of a fiddle and a couple of warming pans. Joseph Poorgrass blinked, and shrank several inches into the background. "Upon my soul, I'm ashamed of you. 'Tis disgraceful, Joseph, disgraceful," said Gabriel indignantly. "Coggan, call yourself a man, and don't know better than this?" Coggan looked up indefinitely at Oak, one or other of his eyes occasionally opening and closing of its own accord, as if it were not a member, but a dozy individual with a distinct personality. "Don't take on so, shepherd," said Mark Clark, looking reproachfully at the candle, which appeared to possess special features of interest for his eyes. "Nobody can hurt a dead woman," at length said Coggan, with the precision of a machine. "All that could be done for her is done. She's beyond us, and why should a man put himself in a tearing hurry for life's clay that can neither feel nor see, and don't know what you do with her at all? If she'd been alive, I would have been the first to help her. If she now wanted victuals and drinks, I'd pay for it, money down. But she's dead, and no speed of ours will bring her to life. The woman's past us, time spent upon her is throwed away. Why should we hurry to do what's not required? Drink, shepherd, and be friends, for tomorrow we may be like her." "We may," added Mark Clark emphatically, at once drinking himself, to run no further risk of losing his chance by the event alluded to, Jan meanwhile merging his additional thoughts of tomorrow in a song. "Tomorrow, tomorrow, and while peace and plenty I find at my board, with a heart free from sickness and sorrow, with my friends I will share what today may afford, and let them spread the table tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow." "Do hold thy horning, Jan," said Oak, and turning upon Poorgrass, "as for you, Joseph, who do your wicked deeds in such confoundedly holy ways, you are as drunk as you can stand." "No, Shepherd Oak, no. Listen to reason, shepherd. All that's the matter with me is the affliction called a multiplying eye, and that's how it is I look double to you. I mean, you look double to me." "A multiplying eye is a very bad thing," said Mark Clark. "It always comes on when I've been in a public house a little time," said Joseph Poorgrass meekly. "Yes, I see two of every sort, as if I were some holy man living in the times of King Noah and entering into the ark. Yes," he added, becoming much affected by the picture of himself as a person thrown away, and shedding tears, "I feel too good for England. I ought to have lived in Genesis by right, like the other men of sacrifice, and then I shouldn't have been called a drunkard in such a way." "I wish you'd show yourself a man of spirit, and not sit whining there." "Show myself a man of spirit? Ah, well, let me take the name of drunkard humbly, and let me be a man of contrite knees, let it be. I know that I do always say, 'Please God,' afore I do anything, from my getting up to my going down of the same, and I'd be willing to take as much disgrace as there is in that holy act. Ah, yes, but not a man of spirit. Have I ever allowed the toe of pride to be lifted against my hinder parts without groaning manfully that I question the right to do so? I inquire that query boldly." "We can't say that you have, hero Poorgrass," admitted Jan. "Never have I allowed such treatment to pass unquestioned. Yet the shepherd says in the face of that rich testimony that I be not a man of spirit. Well, let it pass by, and death is a kind friend." Gabriel, seeing that neither of the three was in a fit state to take charge of the waggon for the remainder of the journey, made no reply, but, closing the door again upon them, went across to where the vehicle stood.